Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going deep on Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning.
Great choice.
You sent us some excerpts from the Internet Archive,
Yes.
and that got me thinking, what a fantastic resource that is.
Wow, it's
It's
incredible.
like having this massive library
Yeah.
right at your fingertips,
Yeah.
millions of books, films, and even software.
Yeah, I mean, it really is a treasure trove of knowledge.
Absolutely.
And it's perfect for a deep dive like this, especially with Frankl's work.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, his ideas are so powerful, especially considering where they came from.
Right.
He wasn't just some, philosopher theorizing from afar. He
Oh, yeah.
lived through the horrors of the Holocaust, and that experience really shaped his whole philosophy.
Yeah, that's what always strikes me about Frankl.
Yeah,
He wasn't just talking about finding meaning in suffering. He was living it.
exactly.
And that experience in the camps, it really did fundamentally shape his entire philosophy.
It did, yeah.
So before we get into the specifics, I think it'd be good to get a refresher on logotherapy.
Sure.
I feel like I've heard the term, but I could use like a quick explanation.
Of course. Logotherapy is the school of psychotherapy that Frankl developed.
Okay.
Now, back then, most therapies focused on, resolving past conflicts or addressing neuroses, things like that. But logotherapy takes a different approach.
Okay.
It's all about the idea that we have this innate will to meaning,
Oh.
this fundamental drive to find purpose in life.
Yeah.
And Frankl argued that this drive is just as strong, if not stronger than, the drives for pleasure or power.
Oh, wow. So it's like this deep-seated need.
Absolutely.
So instead of just chasing happiness or, control, logotherapy is kind of helping us find something deeper, like a reason for being.
Exactly. And Frankl believed this search for meaning wasn't just for, a privileged few.
Right.
It was a universal human need, something essential for well-being, psychological well-being.
This is where it gets really interesting to me.
Yeah.
You're saying that in those horrific circumstances, in the camps, Frankl actually saw people finding meaning.
Yes, she did.
I mean, how is that even possible?
That's the incredible thing, right?
Right.
Frankl observed that even in the most desperate situations, the people who clung to some sense of meaning, some reason to keep going,
Yeah.
they were more resilient.
Wow.
They could endure more suffering.
Mm.
And it wasn't about denying the horror, but it was about finding a purpose that kind of transcended it.
Do you have an example of what that actually looked like in the camps?
Absolutely.
Sorry.
Frankl himself found meaning in small acts of defiance against, despair.
Okay.
He talked about finding meaning in, helping others, maintaining his sense of humor, even just clinging to the hope of reuniting with his wife.
Wow.
These weren't grand heroic acts, but just everyday choices to find meaning in, really tough times.
Right.
And it wasn't just him.
Yeah.
He saw other prisoners finding purpose in similar ways, holding on to fragments of hope, love, faith, things like that.
It's powerful stuff.
It is, yeah.
It really makes you think about how we define meaning in our own lives, doesn't it?
That's exactly Frankl's point. His
Yeah.
work is kind of like a call to action, urging us to look at our lives and uncover what really gives us purpose.
So, I mean, where do we even begin?
Yeah, that's the question.
Is there a formula for finding meaning?
Well, Frankl didn't believe in a one-size-fits-all approach.
Okay.
He said meaning is personal, unique to each person.
Right?
But he did offer some guidance.
Okay.
He outlined 3 main avenues we can explore to discover our own sense of purpose.
Okay, let's hear them. What's the first one?
The first one is finding meaning through creating a work or doing a deed.
Sure.
This could be anything, from pursuing a creative passion, building something tangible, to even just performing acts of kindness.
So it's like contributing something to the world.
Yeah.
Right. Making a difference no matter how big or small.
Exactly. It's about using our talents, our skills, our efforts to create something of value, something that, resonates with our own sense of purpose. It could
Okay.
be through our work, hobbies, even relationships.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What about those of us who aren't, building bridges or composing symphonies? Can we still find meaning through this avenue?
Absolutely. It's not about, grand achievements or anything.
Right?
Remember, Frankl found meaning in those small acts of service back in the camps.
Right.
It's all about the intention behind our actions, the desire to contribute something positive, even if it's just making someone smile,
Okay, so creating, doing, check.
Yeah.
What's the second avenue that Frankl talks about?
The second avenue is finding meaning through experiencing something or encountering someone.
Oh,
This is all about the power of human connection, the impact of relationships, and shared experiences.
this is about opening ourselves up to the world and, like,
Yeah.
letting life touch us.
Exactly. By being present, engaging fully with the people and experiences around us, we allow meaning to kind of emerge organically. This could be, falling in love, connecting with nature, traveling to new places,
Right.
or even just having a deep conversation that shifts our perspective.
Okay, so far so good.
Yeah.
We've got creation, experience, connection.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what about the third one?
All right, here's where it gets, maybe a bit heavier.
Yeah, this is where the camp experience probably really comes into play.
You got it.
Yeah.
The third avenue is finding meaning in the attitude we take towards unavoidable suffering.
Wow.
Yeah, this is perhaps, his most profound and challenging insight.
Yeah, for sure.
He argues that even when we face suffering, even when we can't control our circumstances,
Yay.
we can choose our attitude.
Okay.
And that choice, that act of defiance against despair,
Yeah.
that can be a source of really deep meaning.
So it's not about denying or ignoring the suffering, but like finding a way to rise above it.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's about finding a purpose, a reason to keep going, even when things seem hopeless. Frankl gives a powerful example of this in the camps.
Yeah.
He describes this fellow prisoner who had this dream of being reunited with his wife.
Oh, wow.
That dream, that hope, gave him the strength to endure, like, unimaginable hardships.
Yeah.
It became his reason to live, his source of meaning, even in the face of all that suffering.
So we've got these three avenues: creation, experience, and then the attitude we choose towards suffering.
Right.
But how do we know which one's right for us? Or can we pursue all three?
That's a great question, and Frankl didn't think there was one right answer.
Okay.
He felt we could find meaning through any or all of these avenues,
Okay.
and it often involves, like, a unique combination of all three.
Yeah, that makes sense.
What matters is the intention, the conscious effort to actually seek out meaning in our lives,
Yeah.
and to choose hope over despair.
Wow, that's quite a bit to think about.
It is, yeah.
But I feel like we've just scratched the surface here.
Definitely.
What else did Frankl have to say about this will to meaning?
Well, Frankl didn't just offer a philosophical framework.
Right.
He developed practical techniques to actually help individuals find meaning.
Oh.
He believed meaning wasn't something you just kind of stumble upon. It required active searching,
Okay.
a real effort to engage with life and with ourselves.
So it's not just about thinking about meaning, but like actively going after it.
Exactly.
I'm seeing how this is different from like traditional therapy,
Yeah.
Traditional therapy often focuses on analyzing the past, but this is more about actively shaping the present and the future.
You're getting it. And Frankl had some really specific ideas about how to do that.
Okay.
He developed techniques like de-reflection and paradoxical intention, which, helped people break free from negative patterns and focus on finding meaning in the present moment.
Those sound interesting.
They are.
But maybe that's a topic for our next segment.
Maybe so.
I'm already intrigued. We're on to something fascinating here.
Absolutely. You mentioned before how logotherapy is different from traditional therapies. Yeah.
And that's a great observation.
Yeah.
Frankl thought that dwelling on the past, like overanalyzing our problems, could actually make it harder to find meaning.
Okay.
It kind of kept us stuck in this cycle of negativity.
So instead of looking back, logotherapy is more about looking forward,
Right.
focusing on what we can create, experience, and how we respond to those things life throws at us.
Exactly.
Okay. And that's where those techniques you mentioned come in, right?
Yeah.
De-reflection and paradoxical intention.
Yes.
I gotta say, those sound kind of intimidating.
Yeah. They're a little, the names are a little complex.
Can you break them down a bit?
Sure.
Let's start with de-reflection.
Okay.
What does that even mean?
So de-reflection is basically shifting our attention away from ourselves towards something bigger.
Okay.
Think about those times when you're just like hyper-focused on a problem,
Oh, yeah.
a worry, or like a flaw you see in yourself.
Uh-huh.
It just consumes you, right?
Totally.
And it feels like there's no escape. Yeah, like you're stuck in this mental loop.
Exactly. And Frankl argued that this kind of self-absorption, all this introspection,
Yeah.
it can actually make things worse. It amplifies our anxieties and keeps us from really engaging with the world.
So de-reflection is about breaking free from that loop.
Yes.
How do we actually do that?
Yeah, it sounds a little counterintuitive.
Right. Like, aren't we supposed to be, in touch with our feelings, our thoughts?
We are, but it's all about finding that balance,
Okay.
De-reflection isn't about ignoring our emotions.
Yeah.
It's about shifting our focus.
Okay.
So instead of dwelling on the problems, we redirect our attention
Oh, yeah.
towards something outside of ourselves, something we find meaningful.
So it could be like work, a hobby, spending time with family.
Exactly. Or even just connecting with nature.
Yeah.
Anything that pulls us out of our own heads.
So it's about taking action, right?
Yeah.
Engaging with the world in a way that kind of snaps us out of it. It's about shifting perspective, remembering that there's this whole world out there, and finding our place in it.
You got it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Good.
Now, what about this paradoxical intention?
All right, yes.
That one sounds even more mysterious.
It does have a kind of a strange name, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But the idea is pretty simple.
Yep.
Paradoxical intention is all about confronting our fears
Okay.
by actually wishing for the thing we're most afraid of.
Wait, so if I'm afraid of public speaking,
Yeah.
I should just wish to totally bomb on stage.
Well, it sounds counterintuitive, I know. But think about it.
Like,
When we're really afraid of something, we can create this self-fulfilling prophecy. We get so focused on avoiding it,
Right.
that we actually increase the chances of it happening.
because our anxiety takes over.
Exactly. And we end up sabotaging ourselves.
Okay, I can see that.
Right.
I've definitely had that happen with, like, performance anxiety and stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
But how does wishing for the thing you fear actually help?
Because by wishing for it,
Yeah.
we break the cycle of anxiety.
Okay.
We take away its power.
So it's like saying to your fear, okay, I see you, but you don't control me.
Exactly. It's like disarming it
Okay.
by taking away the element of surprise.
I like it that.
And when we do that, we often find that the fear itself starts to diminish.
Mm.
We realize that the worst case scenario isn't really that bad.
Right.
And we're free to act, more boldly and authentically.
So both dear reflection and paradoxical intention, they're both about taking control.
Yeah.
Not by, like, fighting our feelings, but by shifting our focus,
Right.
changing how we relate to our fears.
Right. That's a great way to put it. It's
Mhm.
about empowerment,
Yeah.
recognizing that we have more agency than we think.
I'm starting to see how these techniques connect to Frankl's whole message about meaning.
Yeah.
It's not about waiting for life to get easier or for our problems to magically disappear. It's about choosing how we respond to the stuff that comes up.
That's the heart of it.
Yeah.
He believed we all have the ability to find meaning, even in the midst of suffering.
Wow.
And it starts with recognizing that we have a choice.
Okay.
We can choose to focus on our limits.
Right.
Or on the possibilities.
Yeah.
We can choose to be defined by the past,
Yeah.
or create a more meaningful future.
It sounds empowering,
It is, yeah.
but I imagine it's not always easy to actually do.
Oh, absolutely not.
It's one thing to read about these techniques,
Right.
but it's a whole other thing to actually use them in our lives.
You're absolutely right.
Right.
It takes effort, it takes intention,
Yeah.
and honestly, sometimes it takes a bit of courage to shift our perspective and change our habits.
Right.
But Frankl believed that anyone could do it,
Okay.
no matter their circumstances.
And he offered some practical advice on how to make this work, right?
He did, yeah.
What kind of practical suggestions did he have? Like, how can we actually live more intentionally,
Yeah.
more meaningfully, following these ideas?
One of the things Frankl really emphasized was finding meaning in the everyday.
Okay.
He didn't think meaning was just for big achievements or grand gestures.
Right.
It's in those small moments,
Yeah.
everyday acts of kindness, the connections we make, the beauty we see around us,
Yeah.
the challenges we overcome.
So it's about being present, really paying attention,
Exactly.
and seeing those opportunities for meaning that are already there.
It's about cultivating that sense of gratitude, appreciating those little things, and choosing to see the good even when things are rough.
Okay.
And it's also about taking action,
Right.
engaging with the world, using our talents, making a difference, even if it's a small one.
This is starting to sound less like therapy and more like a whole philosophy of life.
That's a great way to describe it.
Yeah.
Logotherapy isn't just about, treating mental illness. It's about helping people live more fully,
Yeah.
more authentically, more meaningfully.
It reminds me of what you said earlier about the Internet Archive.
Yeah.
It's a resource, right?
Right.
That connects us with knowledge, with ideas
Yeah.
that can change our lives.
Yeah.
And Frankl's work is kind of like that too.
Interesting connection.
It gives us wisdom,
Yeah.
a guide for navigating all the complicated parts of being human
That's a beautiful way to put it.
and finding our own path to meaning.
And it speaks to how powerful ideas can be.
Yeah,
They can transcend time and circumstance.
For sure.
Just like the Internet Archive lets us access all this knowledge from the past,
Right.
Frankl's work gives us these timeless insights into, what it means to be human.
So where do we go from here?
Yeah.
We've explored Frankl's life, his core ideas about logotherapy, those fascinating techniques,
Yep.
and even some of the criticisms.
Right.
What else is there to discover?
Well, I think it's time we address, the elephant in the room. Frankl's ideas have been really influential,
Yeah, for sure.
but they haven't been without their critics.
Oh, this is where it gets interesting.
Right.
I'm always curious to hear different perspectives.
Yeah, it's important.
So what kind of criticism has his work faced?
Well, some people argue that Frankl's emphasis on meaning
Yeah.
can create a kind of pressure. We have to constantly be striving for something profound.
Right.
That every moment has to be filled with purpose.
Mm.
And they worry this could make people feel inadequate,
Right, like they're not doing enough.
especially those who are already dealing with difficult situations.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
But do you think that was Frankl's intention?
Good question.
Was he saying that we have to be constantly searching for some, grand purpose?
I think it's important to remember that Frankl believed meaning could be found in simple things.
Okay.
He wasn't advocating for a life of constant striving and, achievement.
Gotcha.
In fact, he actually warned against what he called hyperintention. Okay.
Which is that excessive focus on achieving specific outcomes.
So it's not about forcing meaning into every moment,
Right.
but more about being aware of the meaning that's already there.
Exactly.
Oh,
It's
so-
about approaching life with curiosity, with gratitude, with openness to the possibilities.
That feels a lot more, attainable, realistic.
It is, yeah.
Are there any other criticisms of Frankl's work that we should think about?
Well, some critics have also questioned whether his experience in the camps,
Yeah.
can really be applied to the general population.
Okay.
They argue that the Holocaust was such a unique and extreme situation
Right.
that it might not be relevant to people who are facing more, everyday challenges.
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
I mean, it's important to remember the context of his ideas, right?
Absolutely.
But does that mean his message is completely invalid?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
While the suffering in the Holocaust was definitely unique,
Yeah.
the human capacity for resilience, the
Mhm.
search for meaning.
Those are universal.
Right.
And Frankl's observations, even though they came from his specific experience,
Yeah.
offer valuable insights into, the human condition.
Mhm.
They can resonate with people from all walks of life.
I agree. It seems like even the criticisms of Frankl's work,
Yeah.
they show us that it's all about nuance, balance, and really understanding how his ideas work in different situations.
Absolutely.
It's not about having a set of strict rules,
Right.
but about finding what works for each person.
That's a key takeaway from this deep dive.
For sure.
Frankl's work encourages us to think about our own relationship with meaning,
Yeah.
to consider how we can live more intentionally, and to find the strength to face life's challenges with, courage and hope.
This has been a really insightful conversation.
It has, yeah.
I feel like I understand Frankl's work so much better now,
Good.
and I'm already thinking about how I can apply his ideas to my own life.
That's great to hear.
Yeah, it's been great.
And remember, this search for meaning, it's a lifelong journey.
Right.
There's no finish line. It's about constantly exploring, growing, evolving.
We've covered so much today. Frankl's life, his main ideas, the techniques, the criticisms,
Yeah.
even those amazing real-world examples.
It's been a great deep dive.
It has. So what's left to explore in our final segment?
Well, I think it's time we shifted gears a bit
Okay.
and looked at some specific examples of how Frankl's ideas have actually been used,
Oh, perfect.
in the real world.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, the real test of any philosophy is its practical impact.
Let's get practical.
Yeah.
All right, so we've really dug into the theory.
We have.
But you mentioned these real-world applications of Frankl's ideas.
Yes.
Can you give us like some concrete examples?
Absolutely.
How does this actually work?
Logotherapy, it's not just limited to therapy settings. It's
Okay.
being used in fields like education, business, even social activism.
So it's not just about individual therapy, but like creating
Yeah.
like systems and structures that are more meaningful.
Exactly. For instance, in education,
Yeah.
some teachers are using logotherapy principles to help their students find purpose in learning.
That's cool.
Yeah, instead of just focusing on grades and test scores,
Right.
they're encouraging students to connect their studies to their passions,
Sure.
to see education as a way to a more meaningful life.
I remember feeling kind of lost in school sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, what I was learning, it didn't really matter.
I think a lot of people feel that way.
Yeah, if I'd had a teacher who helped me connect the dots, it could have made a huge difference.
Absolutely.
So what about business? How does
Huh.
logotherapy work in that world?
Yeah.
It seems kind of like an odd pairing.
It might seem counterintuitive,
Yeah.
but some businesses are finding that focusing on meaning can actually lead to more success.
Really?
Yeah, they're realizing that employees who feel a sense of purpose in their work,
Mm-hmm.
they're more engaged, more productive, more loyal.
So it's not just about, like, profits anymore.
It's not just about the bottom line.
Businesses are starting to understand that there's more to it than that.
Exactly. They're seeing that meaning matters, not just for individuals, but for the whole organization.
Wow.
Yeah, some companies are even incorporating Frankl's ideas into their mission statements,
Really?
their hiring practices, their leadership training.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a shift.
So we've got education, business, and you mentioned social activism as well.
Yes.
What does that look like?
Well, Frankl believed that the will to meaning could be a powerful force for social change.
Okay.
He argued that people who have a strong sense of purpose,
Yeah,
they're more likely to stand up for what they believe in,
right.
to fight for justice, to make a positive impact on the world.
So it's about, like, channeling that drive for meaning into something bigger.
Exactly. And we see this happening all the time.
Yeah.
People are using Frankl's ideas to fuel movements for social justice,
Right.
environmental protection, human rights. They're finding meaning in their activism, in their efforts to make the world better.
You know, it's incredible to think about how a book written so long ago,
I know.
born out of such suffering,
Yeah.
is still so relevant today.
It's powerful.
It speaks to the power of his message, for sure.
It does, and it reminds us that even when we face huge challenges,
Yes.
even in dark times, the human spirit can find a way to keep going,
Yeah.
to find meaning, to create a better future.
I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
Frankl's life, his ideas, the techniques, the criticisms, these really inspiring real-world applications.
It's been a great deep dive.
It really has.
And what's so important about Frankl's work
Yeah.
is that it's not just about understanding his ideas, it's about putting them into practice.
Right.
It's about asking those big questions like, what gives our lives meaning?
Yeah.
What are our values? What kind of impact do we want to make?
And there's no right answer, right?
There isn't.
It's a journey.
It is.
It's about discovering who we are.
Frankl said it best, I think.
Okay.
He said, man's search for meaning is the primary motivation in his life and not a secondary rationalization of instinctual drives.
Mm.
This meaning is unique and specific in that it must be individually and personally discovered and acted upon.
So to our listeners, as you keep exploring Frankl's work, keep that quote in mind.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to ask those big questions, to really challenge yourself.
And embrace the journey.
Yeah, embrace the journey of discovering what your meaning is.
And remember, it's not something we do alone.
Mm.
It's something we do together,
Yeah.
through our connections, our shared experiences, our efforts to create a better world.
This has been a really inspiring conversation.
It has.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
My pleasure.
We hope you found it insightful and inspiring.
Absolutely.
Until next time, keep searching, keep exploring, and keep finding your own meaning.
Well said.